Okay, today we're talking charitable contributions. So again, if you don't itemize deductions, if you don't have mortgage, interest, or real estate taxes, ignore this. It's probably pretty irrelevant to you. But if you do, we're going to talk about a couple of things. Number one is the things that you can deduct, and number two, the things that you can't deduct. So the things you can deduct are the obvious one: donations to 501c3 organizations. So if you write a check to any of those organizations, religious organizations, those types of things, those are generally deductible. If you make a donation of more than $250 in one individual donation, you need to make sure you get written acknowledgement from the organization of that donation, because if you don't get that and you get audited, they'll basically take away the donation, even if they give it to you after the fact. You have to have that written acknowledgement. So make sure they give that to you if you're making larger donations. The next and most commonly used one is the non-cash donation. So if you, for example, drop stuff off at Goodwill, the first important thing is to make sure you get a receipt for donations like that. They'll ask you when you pull up, and almost everybody says no. But if you're going to be taking that deduction, you should get the receipt that says here's the time I dropped it off and the location, all of that stuff. And then on that receipt, you're technically supposed to document what you donated. So, each different item that you donated and an estimated value of those donations. So again, really important if you're going to take this deduction to have the proper documentation, because it's a really easy thing for them to go after in an audit. If you have non-cash donations of greater than $500 in value, so you're responsible for valuing the items. And if you just say, oh yeah, it was worth like $2,000, we have to fill out a separate form for that. And it basically reports a bunch more information. So it reports each individual drop-off that you had, what you donated for that drop-off, what it was worth, how much you paid for it. So there's all this extra paperwork that goes involved. So I always tell people, if you don't have the documentation, if you don't have any documentation, don't take anything. But if you only got, the receipt and you don't have the specific list of the items that you donated, you shouldn't take more than $500. And then if you're donating a big thing like a car or something like that, there's a whole separate form for that. So those are other options as well. The one more commonly, not understood and not taken advantage of donation is donations of appreciated stock. So let's say I bought stock in a company, I bought Apple or something for $1,000, it's appreciated to $5,000. If I wanted to take that $5,000 and donate it to an organization, and I did it by selling the stock, cashing out and then writing them a check, I have to pay tax on that $4,000 gain that I have from the sale of the security. And then I take the donation deduction. What I can do instead is I can donate that security directly to the organization. So lots of organizations will take these now, stock donations. And what that allows me to do is not have to recognize that $4,000 gain that I have on the appreciated asset. And I still get to take the deduction for $5,000 because it's the fair market value of what I donated. So it's a really great way to save yourself some tax money if you were going to donate anyway. And then the third thing, that a lot of people miss is charitable miles. So like if you drive a lot for volunteer work, you can keep a mileage log and it's 14 cents per mile. It's not a huge amount of money, but something to keep in mind. And the more common questions that I get is, what can't I deduct? So people will ask me, can I do this? Can I do that? And I always have to say no. Here are the most common ones. Number one is donating your time. You don't get a deduction for, taking the amount of time to volunteer or something like that. You don't get to value that, and you don't get to take a deduction for it. The next thing is GoFundMe donations. Lots of people will try to write these off and say, well, I donated to my friend who needs, medical help or whatever. If it's not a charitable organization, you can't take it. So GoFundMe by itself is not a charitable organization, and it's usually money raised for an individual. So those generally are not deductible. Raffle tickets at events is another common one where, we did some split the pot raffle. Because there was a chance that you could win something, you don't get to take a deduction for that. The value of any items that you receive when you go to a charitable event. So if you're getting dinner at a charitable event, you've got to deduct from the ticket price the value of that dinner, which they'll usually provide to you. And then you take the charitable deduction of, the difference between those two. Political donations, that's really common. People will write checks to political organizations or to specific candidates' campaigns. That's generally not a deductible expense either. And that's pretty much it. Those are the most common ones that we get. So if you have any questions about any of these or anything else in your specific situation, give us a call.